in collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
On this week's programme, despite the current hype about changes to Cyprus' energy policy, it seems there are more questions than answers.
Where these investments are going to come from? And once it builds the pipeline, it has to get access to gas to make it viable. So where is that gas going to come from? These are questions, serious questions, that don't make it easy for projects like this to get from ideas to reality.
And this evening, there's a programme in the buffer zone for both communities who would like to build bridges.
The event is open to organisations, individuals and other groups in the field of business, trade, intercommunal collaboration more generally.
We've seen a lot in the newspapers the last week or so about new plans for our gas. Cyprus apparently is hoping to develop a pipeline linking us to Israel's East Mediterranean gas fields. And if I understood correctly, we will take their gas, turn it into electricity and send it back to them. It all seems a little bit strange to me, so I've asked energy expert Charles Ellinas to join us once again on the programme. Charles, what do you make of all of this?
It's a hodgepodge of ideas. I mean, let's put it into some context. The idea of burning gas in Cyprus, generating electricity and sending it to Israel, first surfaced soon after the proposal to build the Euro-Asia interconnector was submitted to the European Commission in 2013. So this idea of such a project surfaced about 9 years ago. But the justification for the electricity to Israel was based and still based on security concerns, on Israeli security concerns. I mean, in Israel, there is concern that if there is a war between Israel and Hezbollah may target energy in Israel to cripple Israel's energy, power stations and also the offshore installations. And you can imagine that the consequences of such an action would be massive. So the idea was to have access to electricity not under threat, and that would be electricity from Cyprus to Israel.
Sorry, has Hezbollah... let me just interrupt. I don't think Hezbollah has ever attacked Israel's electricity infrastructure, has it?
No, but they have been threatening to hit the offshore gas production installations continuously. Even last year, there were threats against the gas production installations of Israel in the Mediterranean. And even though we don't hear about it, Hezbollah has also threatened to hit power plants. So that was a concern, but that requires, such a project requires access to cheap gas. So the idea of bringing gas from Israel to Cyprus and converting it to electricity and selling it back to Israel is challenging. And the main reason is the cost of that electricity. But, you know, if you take, as an example, gas produced by Energean in Israel going straight to Israel is being sold at about $4.5 per 1,000 cubic feet, to make it simpler. If it comes as pipeline to Cyprus, the cost of that gas, once it arrives in Cyprus, will be of the order of $7 per 1,000 cubic feet. That makes that gas much more expensive. As a result, the electricity produced from that gas will be costlier than the equivalent electricity produced in Israel from the same gas if it goes straight to Israel.
I've been reading in the papers that Israel does have a problem with enough electricity for its burgeoning population. I mean, people are still going there to settle, aren't they, in huge numbers, and so they are short of electricity. But my first reaction after all the talks that we've had about electricity in Cyprus is, let's just suppose that we did bring in this very expensive gas. How would we store that electricity? Because at the moment we're actually not taking up as much res as we could because our grid isn't up to standard. So that doesn't make sense to me.
No, that's another issue, Rosie. If it comes to Cyprus and is converted to electricity, that electricity will go straight into the interconnector cable and back to Israel. So it will not rely on our grid, which is another issue that is a problem. But it's the cost of that electricity once it arrives to Israel. Not only the gas will be more expensive if it comes to Cyprus, but it also has to pay a fee to use the Eurasia interconnector to send the electricity to Israel. So you can imagine that if gas from Energean's installations goes straight to Israel and converted to electricity, that electricity will be much cheaper than the electricity going there from Cyprus.
Well, that seems to be a no-brainer. Why aren't they doing that, though, Charles?
No, they are doing that. I mean, just this year, a couple of months ago, Israel approved the construction of new gas-fired power plants. So, yes, there is growing need for electricity in Israel, but Israel is not standing still waiting for others to provide it. They are building their own gas-fired power plants, and they're also increasing the use of renewables. So I don't believe the main driver behind such a project is Israel's electricity requirements, because it can provide these by itself and at a much lower cost. So who is going to pay for this much more expensive electricity going to Israel there? It's not a commercial undertaking. As I said, the main reason behind the idea was security driven, and that requirement is still valid, but it requires access to cheap gas. That's why, even though the idea has been in existence for something like 9 years now, it hasn't developed into a project because it cannot get access to that cheap gas, which we in Cyprus also need. The minister has been talking about accessing gas from our gas fields to bring down the cost of electricity. But that is a challenge. We cannot get that gas that quickly and that easily.
Yeah, well, I think the last time they talked about when we might get the gas, and it doesn't seem at the moment as if many of the companies that have been drilling for it are particularly bothered whether or not they start actually extracting it. We're talking several years down the line, aren't we?
We are. I mean, first of all, let's also talk about Israel's gas. I mean, because it's one thing to talk about getting gas from Israel, but does Israel have gas to export? Yes, it does, but it has other commitments. So let's look at these sources of gas in Israel. Chevron, that operates two big gas fields, Tamar and Leviathan, is actually embarking on projects to expand production. But all of that production has already been earmarked for export to Egypt, which is desperate for new gas, plus also for export as LNG by building a floating liquefaction facility on top of the Leviathan gas field to export it to the markets of Asia. So there is no gas from Chevron to come to Cyprus from Israel. The only other company that has gas in Israel is Energean. But Energean can only export gas because of the agreements it has with the government of Israel, gas from new discoveries in Israel. So far, the amount of gas from new discoveries Energean has made in Israel is small. It's only about a quarter of Aphrodite, not big enough to sustain exports. And Energean is also looking to sell that gas to within Israel. As you said before, Israel needs to use more gas for power generation, so Energean is looking to sell that gas directly to Israeli power plants. Plus, also, it's considering sending some of that gas to Egypt. So, where is that gas going to come from Israel to Cyprus? It's not straightforward. And then there is the pipeline. Who is going to build the pipeline? Energean that proposed previously to build a pipeline from Israel to Cyprus, because of the of now the cost implications, and because Energean doesn't have that much gas, has come this year to say that we expect others to build the pipeline. So who are these others that will build the pipeline? One company is the gas pipeline company of Israel, the state-owned company of Israel. That might be interested, but that's a state company, and it needs to find the investments. Where these investments are going to come from? And once it builds the pipeline, it has to get access to gas to make it viable. So where is that gas going to come from? These are questions, serious questions, that don't make it easy for projects like this to get from ideas to reality.
I'm interested that you just said that Israel is considering building its own floating LNG plant for transforming the gas into liquid, because our minister recently said, I think, that rather than using the EastMed pipeline to continental Europe, the new government, it said in the paper, is proposing a much shorter one, linking Cyprus to fields off Israel, and once in Cyprus, the gas could be converted to LNG and shipped to Europe. But we haven't got an LNG plant, and we're still talking, are we not, about that idea near Vasilikos that is any nearer fruition or not, Charles? We've talked about it for the last 2.5 years.
Well, that's correct, and it's good to come up with ideas, but it's not the Israeli government or the Cypriot government that make these things happen. It's companies. At the moment, the company in Israel at the center of all of this is Chevron, and Chevron is proposing to do its own thing, which is its own floating liquefaction plant at Leviathan under its full control for its own needs. So Chevron is not looking at participating in such a project in Cyprus. And then there is another serious question that I keep talking about it, but nobody seems to want to listen. Where in Europe? Europe at the moment does not need any new gas. Europe is actually reducing its gas consumption. So far until now, in comparison to the gas consumption of Europe over the average gas consumption over the last 5 years, the gas use in Europe has gone down by 18%, and is still going down. And Europe has a target to reduce gas utilization by 30% by 2030, and then carry on reducing it until it achieves net zero emissions by 2050. So Europe does not need new gas sources. So why do we keep talking about sending this gas to Europe when Europe doesn't need it? How it's going to happen? Europe is not funding pipeline projects anymore, or projects to do with gas anymore. It stopped doing that. And it has the gas it needs. It is replacing the Russian gas. There are huge amounts of American LNG, liquefied natural gas, going to Europe. It does not need new projects. Who is going to build this liquefaction facility at Vasilikos when the major oil companies are not interested? As you said, in Cyprus, Chevron now has put forward plans to take the Aphrodite gas to Egypt by pipeline and sell it to Egypt, partly for its own use and possibly by use by the liquefaction plants of Egypt. And there is another question here. The EastMed doesn't have vast quantities of gas to export as liquefied natural gas. The two plants that Egypt has, by the summer, they will not have any gas to produce any LNG for export to anywhere. So you're going to have in December 2 liquefaction plants in Egypt, which cannot be used because they don't have enough gas, even though the LNG market in the world is doing very well, and Egypt would love to export more LNG. It cannot produce it because it doesn't have any more gas. So who is going to build more LNG facilities in Cyprus when the LNG facilities in Egypt are not used? The preference would be, first of all, exhaust the capacity of these plants in Egypt before you think about anything else. That's why Chevron is sending more gas to Egypt from Israel, and is proposing to send Aphrodite gas to Egypt. Once the appraisal drilling is completed on Aphrodite over the next month or so, and we know the exact quantities of gas it has. The other companies, ExxonMobil, for example, its plans are long-term. They're not considering doing anything with gas projects in the region for the time being until they make more discoveries. Their position is that, yes, we discovered Galapagos in Block 10 of Cyprus, but that is not enough gas for us to do anything about it. We are going to carry on with exploration until we find more gas, and by the end of this decade, consider what to do with it. That's the plan ExxonMobil has. So it's not, nothing's going to happen over the next few years as far as Exxon is concerned. And then there is Eni that has discoveries in Block 6, and Eni hasn't announced any plans yet, and you're aware of its chief executive saying that the development of gas in the East Mediterranean can only happen with the cooperation of Turkey.
Yes, that's another spanner in the works. There seem to be more spanners than works at the moment, Charles. And call me cynical, I sort of get the feeling that all this sudden brouhaha about Israel and Cyprus linking up to do all the things we've been talking about is, if you like, a bit of a blanket on the fact that actually they know nothing is going to happen for the foreseeable future.
Well, I wouldn't be as blunt as that. I think our new minister wants to do something, but I think if he wants to do something, he needs to place most of his attention on doing something with renewables. As you said earlier on, Rosie, in Cyprus we have a problem at the moment. We produce some renewable energy which the grid cannot even take it. So we need to upgrade the grid. We need to install electricity storage with batteries to enable the increase in the renewable production in Cyprus to substantial numbers. I mean, the European Commission new climate targets mean that on average about 60% of Europe's electricity by 2030 must come from renewables. We, at the moment, are below 15%. We have a long way to go. Greece is doing very well. It's producing now over 40% of its electricity from renewables. We have a long way to go. To achieve that, we need to upgrade the grid, we need to install batteries for storage, and we need to complete the interconnector, the Eurasia interconnector.
Charles,
and smart meters.
Do you think
these things are in our hands? All of these things I mentioned now are in our hands. Gas is, as we discussed earlier on, gas is not in our hands. Developing the gas and using the gas and the infrastructure and so on is in the hands of the major oil companies, and they are not interested at the moment. So let's stop talking about gas as a priority and make renewables a priority.
Do you think that Cyprus can be self-sufficient in reasonably priced electricity if it does go down the RES route?
Yes, it can. I mean, first of all, we need to go and do all of these things through competitive bidding, and bidding that can produce electricity at 5 or 6 cents per kilowatt hour, like in other countries rather than the exorbitant prices we're paying at the moment. And build renewables at scale. Once we go and achieve the targets of Europe, in other words, at least half of our electricity coming from renewables, and we go and do it all by competitive bidding, the chances are that costs can come down. And there is another elephant in the room that we seem to be sort of not talking about. And that big elephant in the room is what is happening with our new project to bring liquefied natural gas to Vasilikos. The Chinese company is supposed to be building the facility, and which should have been ready in 2020. It should have been ready last year after they revised the plan, and it now doesn't seem to be coming anywhere being ready until probably next year. And even then, there are major question marks as to whether that will be ready. The European Commission is providing funds for it. We borrowed money as Cyprus. It's a project that is going to cost well in excess of $300 million. What is happening with that? Where is that money going? When is that going to be ready? What is holding it up? I hear that the Chinese company behind it is taking us to court for more money. So what is going on? So instead of actually talking about gas from Israel, let's sort out this problem. We're committed to that. The project started some time ago and it's in progress. The ship to regasify the gas is going to be ready in a couple of months. And it's going to come to Cyprus and then do what? The minister said he will lease it to others to use, but are we building a ship or modifying a ship for regasifying LNG plant only to go and lease it? What is going on with that project? Why aren't we coming out transparently and telling everybody where is it going? What is happening to it? Is the electricity authority ready to accept gas? How long will it take for it to accept gas? There is a private company that is investing a lot of money to build a new power plant to burn gas. And that company is despairing because it's making plans, and apparently the news this last week was that some of the equipment is already arriving in Cyprus. Where is the gas?
So it looks though as if you're saying as well that even if we had the gas, the Electricity Authority of Cyprus wouldn't be able to turn it into enough electricity anyway.
Well, they're not ready. I mean, it's not a major problem, but they need to be ready. I mean, this LNG project to import LNG at Vasilikos, in theory, should be ready next year. In theory, EAC should be ready to accept that gas and use it to convert from using heavy fuel oil to gas. They are not ready. The project is not ready.
And where would we get the LNG from? You've just been telling me that there's a shortage.
No, the global markets will have LNG. I mean, if we go to the global markets, we should be able to find LNG because the quantities we need are really minute, very, very small quantities.
Will that not be expensive if it's got to come from much further afield than Egypt if they're running out?
Egypt can, I mean, we cannot buy it from Egypt because it's not producing at the moment, but we can buy it from the markets. It will be expensive, I'm afraid. We should not have embarked into this project. We have, but even at current LNG prices, global LNG prices, if we buy it at those prices, it will still be cheaper than burning heavy fuel oil. A little bit cheaper, not much cheaper. But the advantage, of course, is that if we convert to gas, we're going to pay less penalties for emissions, for carbon emissions.
Well, that's another drain on Cyprus's finances, and it's been going on for years. We'll have to just see what happens, I suppose, Charles. I seem to say that every time we speak.
I'm afraid we have, but as I said, gas is not under our control. It's under the control of the oil companies, and we can keep talking with between Cyprus government and Israel government, but we do not control anything related to gas. we should turn our attention to renewables and do everything we can to increase the uptake of renewables. That's completely in our hands. And it's a project. When it comes to renewables, we can also get support from the European Commission and funding from the European banks, EIB and EBRD, who stopped funding gas projects but are quite keen to fund renewables projects.
Okay, the Green Deal. I'm sure we will talk again,
Exactly.
Charles. I can't see any
sure.
major event happening at the moment, but many thanks again for sharing your expertise. That is Charles Elinas. He is an energy expert with the Atlantic Council and many other organisations. Thanks again, Charles.
Thank you, Rosie.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
Coming up this evening, there is a conference called Building Bridges. It's taking place in the UN buffer zone, and one of the organisers is the Cyprus Peace and Dialogue Centre, from where we join Paraskevi Koumi. Paraskevi, thanks for joining us. Tell us first of all about what the centre actually does, and then we'll get on to this evening's event.
Thanks for having me, Rosie. So, the Cyprus Peace and Dialogue Centre was founded about 2 years ago. It's a bi-communal initiative which brings together key stakeholders from the field, and we cover mainly 4 thematic areas. So the first one is policy, looking at lending civil society support to the resumption of the peace talks. The second one is grassroots dialogue and cultural reconciliation. So we've done Turkish Greek language programs, research, interviews with marginalized groups. The third one is cross-community civil society networking, bringing together groups who work monocommunally either side of the divide, but on the same issues or with island-wide importance. And the fourth is economy and commerce, and that's where tonight's event sits.
So what will be happening this evening? It starts, I know, at 6 and runs all the way through till 10. That's 4 solid hours. What are people going to be doing?
Well, the event kicks off at about 6 o'clock. It's public, open to all, between the Fulbright Gate and the Lisbon Palace Hotel. There'll be information stalls from our partner organisations, also award winners of the Stelios Foundation Award. There'll be information about competitions and programs that are directed at the SMEs. So at first it will be visiting the information stalls, talking to the organisers, but also there'll be 3 panel discussions. So the first one is with the Chambers of Commerce of either side, the second one is with the World Bank, and the third one is about blockchain and cryptocurrency. So
it's a wide variety of topics that's going to be covered. Who do you expect to join you, and what will they get out of it?
So the event is aimed mainly at SMEs from across the divide, so small, medium enterprises, business owners, people who are looking to start a business. The event kicks off with a workshop from CSI who'll be exploring how to develop your entrepreneurial mindset. But also the event is open to organisations, individuals and other groups in the field of business, trade, intercommunal collaboration more generally. So there'll be food, music, networking. It's really an opportunity to meet people, learn from some of the experts in the field, have your specific questions answered. And also there'll be a structured networking facility so we can match people from the same sector or with the same businesses.
Now, I think this is the 3rd time you've done one of these events. Can you tell me how successful they've been in the past? Have you managed to match up Greek and Turkish Cypriot young people, mostly, I imagine, who want to enter into some sort of commercial enterprise together?
I don't know if there's been an actual business launched already, but we have definitely made cross-communal business linkages. And it wasn't just with young people, it's with people across age groups. And one thing I will say about tonight is that it is open to everybody, including whether or not you speak English. We'll have live interpretation from Greek and Turkish. In any case, there have been people who have been able to develop their own business and learn more about the Green Line regulation, which then helps intercommunal trade. So the other 2 events were a success, and December focused on women's entrepreneurship, and we had some great feedback from the women entrepreneurs then.
Well, that is Building Bridges, the third iteration of this particular event, and it is happening tonight in the buffer zone near the Lidra Palace between 6 and 10 p.m. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.